Welcome back to the Martin Leedtke channel. Glad you could be here today, guys. Going to share some thoughts and a little possible penny drop with you all while I was doing my research. So I was going through the Rumsey library, as you do, as you do every day. And I was going through an old 1531 book of Cities of Europe. And I came across this first image, which struck a chord with me because it was something I was thinking about recently, and it was this: feeding people during apocalyptic times. Feeding people when it possibly gets too cold and crops fail. What about a mud flood? I can't imagine any crops growing after a mud flood. And baking hot climates, baking hot summers have known to kill crops. So people had to preserve themselves. People had to survive. So what did they do? Okay, well, they built a town wall around their town, that is for sure. And you can see this inside Starforts too. This is not precisely a Starfort, but it is a fort of sorts, a castle, with a town inside and a beautiful big church, giving off its frequency, and another little church. But what I noticed was this. So I thought, well, okay, well, it would have to be making a load of crops or growing a load of crops to feed such a town. Well, indeed they are just outside. Look, there's some crops going down the local farm and some orchards and just outside the town walls. So I don't think the town walls are actually anything to do with defensive measures against any attacking army, because the attacking army could sit and munch all your food supply, couldn't it? And then that would be devastating because we would starve. And this is how a whole siege warfare is carried out: is they cut off your food supply. But not in this case, because these people in all these towns, I've noticed, grow their own food. Now, this is not like, botanical gardens to walk around for decoration. These are doing crops of beans, I guess, and over here as well, which makes perfect sense because you have to preserve yourself. And I notice in the Victorian era, right the way up till, well, even to the modern day, really, is houses had allotments, a piece of ground where you could grow some hay, for example, feed your cattle, and cattle also your food supply, and your chickens and everything else. And as you can see, right the way around the outside, and I could show you this 100 examples of right the way around outside, they're growing foodage, which makes perfect sense actually. So then I got to think about this: the Tartarians and the abundance of photographs that I have of amazing Tartarian greenhouses. And I thought, oh, wow, right. So if it was, really, really cold, like in the year 1812, 1813 and 14, the year without winter, for example, worldwide, then crops failed and there would be ultimately food shortages and starvation. But not if you've got a greenhouse and a machine of perpetual electrified for a perpetual electrified garden. Now, I got a sneaky feeling that this machine is running off of atmospheric electricity. Why do I think that? Well, nearly all of these beautiful Tartarian greenhouses are fitted up with Antiquitech, as I will show you now. So they're using electroculture. To this community, electroculture is known. That a subtle charge, even orgonite will bring plants on, but a subtle charge of electricity in the soil, and it invigorates plant growth. So, and it's protected from the cold. Alternatively, in boiling hot summer, the greenhouse can be cooled like they do in the modern day, and you could carry on growing all your crops. So what if all of these crystal palaces, this is apparently the building of the Crystal Palace in London for the Great Exposition, not fully glassed up. But what if this is an older building? And what if it was originally, this was what was going on with all of them, is they were not all for dirigibles and balloons, because I was thinking about where would the balloon actually leave the building? One side would have to be let off, so possibly not the case. But For the sake of a greenhouse, which is exactly what it is, you could grow food out of the way of the inclement climate, couldn't you? You got Kew Gardens and others all over Europe. These beautiful glass domes, all growing in the modern day, though, however, botanical gardens and tropical plants and plants that don't grow in the indigenous population. So let's just pretend history was real. Okay, here's one of these beautiful Tartarian greenhouses. Can you imagine the crops you grow in there? So going back 2,000 years ago, apparently the Romans came to Britain, okay, and apparently they wanted to grow grapes here because apparently the climate in Britain at that time was suitable for growing grapes. Well, maybe in some of the southern counties in the modern day, but vines are notoriously hard to grow in Britain, okay, unless they're in a greenhouse. Well, that doesn't happen. They don't grow grapes in Britain, really. Britain's not a wine-growing nation. But France, further south, is, however, and Spain and Portugal. So we must have been warmer at some stage to be able to grow grapes. But check out the Antiquitech going on. What are these precisely? And all of the wrought ironwork on the top, these are just left to rack and ruin, as you can see, a lot of them. But imagine that you're a savvy Tartarian. You realize that the winter failed at the beginning and it was quite apocalyptic. Many, many people died. And then you know that the weather goes in cycles of absolutely blistering to absolutely blathery or boss stock freezing. So you prepare by getting yourself a greenhouse and growing your own stuff. As you can see, the great expositions, the great greenhouses, crystal palaces of the exposition were full of water features and shrubberies and ferns. But that could have easily been, post reset crops, couldn't it? Just like in the programs, The Vault, where they're growing these huge places full of food, but that is underground. So yeah, you've got a beautiful bit here that sort of centralizes, energy, if you like, chi energy to help the growing of these plants. So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense with an altering climate that you can still grow all year long. Ooh, I know that's possibly an older one, but I know there's a polished floor, but it looks like a swimming pool, doesn't it? And look how beautiful. Looks like she's just mesmerized. Anyway, so yeah. And another thing you find as well is Britain is famous for British stately homes, country homes, homes to gentlemen and the gentry in the 16 and 1700s. And the British countryside is littered with umpteen stately homes. And they're beautiful, massive Tartarian buildings, mudflood affected, and nearly all of them have really big conservatories and greenhouses attached to them for obviously growing their own stuff. Now, back in the day, okay, they didn't have orders online and they didn't nip off to the local store to buy a load of food and bring it all home. And if they needed medicines, they grew their medicines because they knew the knowledge of what medicines were good for us. So they grew them. They didn't bugger off down to the pharmacy because the pharmacy wasn't about. Anyway, Antiquitech, Electroculture, and greenhouses. Come on, guys, it has to be. Occam's razor, surely. Look at this. And the Antiquitech invigorates the plants. And as I said, in shifting climates, if you've got a machine for perpetual electrified, electric that doesn't run out, guys. And he's obviously in 18th century Gab, in the days of the Whigs, 18th century. So they're obviously generating the electricity using this whole building, I would say. Oh, there are two orbs there as well. Really super interesting. So yeah, the great expositions, you can see the domes as well in the American expositions of like St. Louis. Some of them weren't gold, some of them were glass domes, and inside them it looks like years and years of growth, doesn't it? Like, this has been growing forever. And you can see the Phoenician banding that shows you this is the great expositions at the World's Fairs. Oh, can you just imagine, guys? Yeah, just imagine, right? Got all the woods around you. I would love to. I got a little tree house flat. I got trees outside, and it reminds me of being in a tree house. But I would love to live in a tree house like that, with all the sun coming through, different colours. Nice cup of coffee, bifter. Ah, and wouldn't be moaning then saying, "Oh, it's hell this realm," would you? You'd be going, "Well, it's not so bad." This lady, if she is, think she is. Okay, well, as I said, everybody was self-sufficient in the past. I love the bird cage. So she got pets, she got some stuff growing for medicine, and she's got some intellectual intake. I don't know what that would be. Hope it's not suffragetty. But she's in the black mourning dress, so maybe her husband is pegged here, and a beautiful cat who is starring in this photograph. It's quite a nice photograph. I really like. It's weird how she's tilted on the edge of the chair. It doesn't look very comfortable. Somebody who was taking the photograph said, "Sit down," and she's so awkward because it's all so new. But she doesn't want to sit on the chair properly. Anyway, we had all we need. We dried them out in our kitchens, hanging up. As I said, we didn't go down the pharmacy and fill up with what we need. We grew what we need. Look at that. And we've got these in this one in my city in Roath Park. But it's like I said, it's put over to botanicals in the modern day, same as Kew Gardens. But if you go further back in time, I really do think if there is a shortage of food, it makes perfect sense that these buildings would have been utilized to grow food for the population, the elites at least. You're not going to just have plants that are non-edible. And you see Versailles and all these different places with these elaborate gardens. Yeah, okay, it's really pretty in that, but listen, you can't eat that stuff. I think that some of these places that are showing us that on maps that will show you shortly, give you a clue. I think they're showing us expansive growing food growing. So yeah, you can see greenhouses. I think it was all down to food growing in the Tartarian greenhouses. So I have put it forward many years ago. I think Antiquitech itself, the resonance, the frequency of the church machines, and the resonance of Antiquitech generally would assist through electroculture the growth of vegetables and plants and even animals, even people. As you can see, this German in the First World War has just gone and took himself 2 cabbages to make some cabbage soup. But they are whoppers. Whoppers. There are food growing competitions in Britain every year that people grow massive, whopping great cabbages. So our kitchens are larders. We had larders. Now, my mother said that she never had fridge freezers when she was a little girl. They had a pantry and a slab of marble, white marble, and the marble would stay stone cold, right? And you could put your butter on there, your cheese on there, and it would all stay cold and it would all stay fresh, even in the middle of summer in the pantry, and it wouldn't spoil. And that's what we used to do. We didn't, and nobody, they didn't have fridge freezers. My mother didn't, they actually didn't have electric back, a lot of people, even during the war. My ex's grandmother said she wouldn't have electric in the house, and she, even in the 40s, had still gas. So, as you can see, they got lovely meat drying and cured. And look at the crockery that they had and all of the different things for serving. Can you imagine the fine food that kitchen would produce? So Starforts are definitely it's something to do with food production, I think, guys. I've got some evidence I could show you many Starforts that are actually growing food just outside them or inside them as well, where the population is. Okay, this is Fort Wood on Liberty Island, just off of Jersey, as you know, New York's famous monument of Lucifer. But it is a really unbelievable star fort, and the whole thing looks like some sort of technology in you know, electrical circuitry or something. But I notice that there's a lot of greenery. So yeah, that could have been you know, or an island off of New York just full of food. And here's somebody who bought my book in a while ago, and they grew what they needed. So was it always like this? Heaps of children and people picking cotton, picking crops, picking tea, and taking to the fields. Well, it seems backbreaking. And in inclement weather, like some years crops fail, everyone would die unless they got storage. So greenhouses, I feel, are a must, for survival. Also, roof growing. I notice in ancient Rome, or the Levant atlases of Rome, show you that they're growing like the hanging gardens of Babylon on rooftops. I also think these things that we see all over antiquity, these little stupas, these little Antiquitech things, I think that they would enhance growth as well, because there's a lot of growth on this one. Also, there's an abundance of spaghetti that can be grown on trees, and the population can be kept alive with spaghetti, apparently. So yeah, so we could grow loads and loads and loads and loads of spaghetti trees. Okay, that will ensure the future survival of humanity. And then we can go spaghetti picking. Come in spaghetti picking with me? Yeah. Oh, you've got to love this old lady. Look at her. She got a little wheelbarrow. She's grown herself the necessary plants that she needs for her survival. And she got some chimes. Chimes? Chimes. Give off chi energy. She got it going on. Imagine her when she was young in Woodstock. Yeah. In a boob tube and dancing all beautiful. And she's like, oh, still the same. So it's just the same old thing going round and round, isn't it? This lady, she won first prize at the county fair. She took it in and they were like, lovely, but absolutely no one knew what it was. So there's that. She got given an award by the mayor and the sheriff. This is a book that I actually got, but it's in French. I can't read it. But I got other books about electroculture, and it shows you, you know, the subtle charge will help grow big cabbages and big carrots. I wonder why that they was that big in the First World War. I wonder if anything of the technology was enhancing growth. This lady here, she's growing massive rhubarbs, and she's going to make poison out of the rhubarbs. See your husband off. That might not be true. Let's just say that she's just grown it for rhubarb pie. And it might not be rhubarb. They could be banana trees, but they look rhubarb. Maybe you can tell me in comments. Old Betty had rhubarb marticus. In comments. This guy, yeah, he had an unusual relationship with an onion. The world is just a great big bunion. Anyway, he's like, I love my onion. Ooh, me and my onion. Ooh. Touching me, touching you. So the growing of chrysanthemums, whatever they're using for fertilizer in these tiny little pots to get, which I can only think are dahlias or chrysanthemums maybe, but they are beautiful, and look at how massive they are and the growth everywhere. He's really good at growing. I'm like Dr. Green. So I used to work in as a plant expert in my last job. So yeah, inside the Great Expositions, the Crystal Palace, you can see that there, oh, excuse me, there is much fauna and there is much well, palm trees, stuff that grows in hotter countries that can grow in London there. Okay. And it was a lot colder years ago. Palm trees do all right where I live, because I live on the Gulf Stream on the south coast of Wales. So we had it going on like this. Obviously, we haven't got our own little homesteads, all of us anymore. And they don't really want us growing anything, because all the seeds are like Monsanto, and they're all like, you know, not first generation, and they're all like GMO, and there's all different things going on. They're not the first ones, are they? So, you know, everything's altered, modified genetically. Unfortunately, but I've got a feeling that somewhere somebody's got a big stash of first. I think they're all in the Svalbard, the Svalbard seed bank. I think she would go and bum rush it and get some seeds for survival. So yeah, cattle, chickens. Lovely chickens. And they're stupid, aren't they? Did I tell? Don't, I won't mention that. Massive cabbages, massive everythings. And you could have soups, chickens, and butter, and all that. Listen, what else would you need in life, guys? What else would you need? As long as you've got your music system, grow all your stuff, the whole world can go and blow itself up. It wouldn't even matter to you, would it? Out there in the old field, growing all your own stuff. But as I said, well, myself personally, I did grow a lot of food in the past, but today, I'm living in an apartment and I can't grow anything, not even in buckets. There's just no. I tried a little bit of gardening, but it's impossible. I did try down the allotment road, and I did get an allotment, a 42-tier allotment in Tralee in Ely, and I went down there. Only they had like a socialist cult going on, and they were bullying as well. So I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything with you people, so fuck off. I'm going. I can't really do sucky people. What we got here is a Lead van der Haar Atlas, okay, of 1733 and later. Lead van der Haar actually died 1733 on the publication of these atlases, coincidentally. So it shows you Britain, and they are really unbelievable pictures. I got this one up. It's the last picture. We'll go through in reverse. Sometimes I like to start a book at the end. Ely. Well, I live in Ely in Cardiff, and this is Ely where the cathedral is in Cambridgeshire. Okay, but what I notice is the old stately homes. Now, a lot of it is down to wildfowl and stuff, grouse running around in the woodlands, so you can go and hunt them, and they have hunting seasons as well, don't they? So you can go and shoot grouse, and because there's not like we don't have wild animals here in Britain. We have tame ones. Nothing hurts you. You beautiful little hedgehogs, which are endangered. I love hedgehogs. If you can save hedgehogs, please save hedgehogs. So I can't imagine that all of this is just over to decoration. Beautiful symmetry going on, but it seems so. Flowers and that. Very nice, but I guessing you could put it straight over to food if needs be. It's surrounded by a wall as well on this stately home. And they all have these unbelievable elaborate gardens, guys. That's Wimpole in the county of Cambridge. Right, let's have a look at Cambridge. Oh. So, yeah, they could be orchards as well, couldn't they, quite easily? And Ely itself, which has the ginormous cathedral. So that's a hill, Mount Hill, with a windmill on top. Wow. I've only been through. I haven't actually been to Ely. I've had letters and phone calls. People got it wrong to this Ely. But you can see everyone's got a little allotment. Look, guys, they're growing their own nosh where they need it. Everyone is, look. Everyone was growing their own food. Now, the narrative is the population exploded because of the advancement in growing foods, like Jethro Tull with his crop rotation and crop rotation in the 13th century as well, putting over to arable farming, and then you rotate your crops so that the cattle are in a different one and then the crop is in a different one so don't deplete the soil, etc., etc. And apparently, yeah, they had great success, and then they made loads and loads of wheat, and then they made loads and loads and loads of bread, and everybody, yeah, started making babies all of a sudden. And then the world population went from to all the people that you know, and our grandparents, parents, Victorians and Edwardians. So the size of this gaff. Completely surrounded by a town wall. And I really don't think that's for invading enemies either. Wow, look at the size of them apartment blocks. 1700s. So what is this one? That's the Emmanuel's College. Oh, right, it's a college in Cambridge. And the oldest universities, they say, is Cambridge and Oxford. There are some that the more set up in Spain, apparently the first in Europe, but the first for the elite brats. It's crashed me, haven't it? Oxford and Cambridge. Yeah. It always does that. But I suspected that was the case. So I brought up another one just in case. Ha! It always does it. Gallagher's a terrible swine for crashing. So another Lead van der Haal atlas, and this is showing you Albing. This is a German city with beautiful Starfort. We'll go through a couple, and you're finding the same thing with Starfort. Unfortunately, Gallagher's being a total shit. Gone. Okay. It's not what you need when you're doing a video, is it? Okay. Let's just have a look at some stuff grow. So yeah, just to conclude this video, I think the greenhouses were a necessity for human survival in colder and hotter times when crops fail. I think that it's the greenhouses of the expositions are probably repurposed, and they were originally for growing food for the people. And people were growing food in the Starforts, and people were growing them in walled towns and cities. What we're watching here is early, very early time-lapse photography. Nature growing. Let's have a look. See spring come. Nothing better than spring after a long cold winter. Not that we have them anymore. They're always mild. So yeah, like Gallagher does crash, and it always does. That's why I don't ever present them on my normals. But that's fine because my point is across. They grow inside Starforts as well. Ah, the wailing sound of sirens is so dystopic. Ah. Don't worry, I block it out with a bit of Mozart, my own voice. So lots happening on the scene. Got some hangouts and interviews coming up as well, guys. Make sure to subscribe to Martinliedtke channel if it takes, and click that bell as well for notifications, and then you'll know when I make a post, because apparently 70,000 people should be notified when I release a video. Apparently. So yeah, if you do like my videos, make sure to give it a like and share it as well. I'm sure there's not too much cussing. Ah, from a seed to a tree. Awesome. So I hope you enjoyed that little video today. That's been Marticus Liedtke today, Lee Van Cleet. And I will be back very soon with more Flat Earth British shed thoughts of the day. Hope you enjoyed. See you all soon.